Good morning, campers. This is our first group swim of the annual New Hampshire Summit on Systemic Inclusion. And Kimelyn, it's really a pleasure to meet you virtually and to welcome you, which Kristy is gonna very kindly do in just a few seconds. It's my great privilege and delight to introduce Kristy Merrill, who is a wonderful co-conspirator in all this diabolical work we've undertaken together to mobilize the extraordinary community of banking leaders in New Hampshire and others in financial institutions, our brothers and sisters at credit unions and others that are all about financial and economic inclusion. And Kristy, it's been amazing to work with you. Your support, there's no way we would be where we are now were it not for your abiding sense of humor and kindness and the leadership you bring to this work. So Kristy is the executive director, the president of the New Hampshire Bankers Association. And it's a thrill to introduce Kristy, who will then kindly introduce our renowned keynote speaker as well. Thanks, Kristy.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. You are way too generous in your words. And it was really exciting to hear your intro this morning and to hear a little bit about some of the exciting work. And I was really interested to hear about the Prosperity Cafe. And I thought it was interesting in your comments, you talked about how you really focus on being a collaborative, and you really are, but I think in order to bring collaborators together, you need someone to do that. And Bob, you and your team with the digital equity folks have really done that. So thank you for all you're doing and for this really robust meeting and just digging into all of these really important issues. So we wouldn't collaborate without someone pulling everyone together. So thank you, Bob. But it is my pleasure. I'm thrilled that Bob has asked me to introduce the keynote speaker this morning. Kimelyn, it's very nice to see you. And so I'm excited to introduce Kimelyn. Kimelyn Harris is an ESG program executive for the Racial Equity and Economic Opportunity Initiative at Bank of America. It's very impressive. In her role, she's responsible for executing programming to support the bank's $1.25 billion 5-year effort to advance economic opportunity, healthcare initiatives, and racial equality for people and communities of color. So that's a pretty big undertaking that she's leading. And she's also working to identify and build partnerships with organizations, institutions, and community leaders. Before that role, Kimelyn provided strategic, operational, and programming support for employee giving and volunteering, social justice, and economic mobility initiatives. And prior to that, she was a business change manager within Global Treasury Services. And as a business integration consultant within Global Risk Management, she was responsible for the development and implementation of decision strategies and credit scoring tools used for consumer small business banking portfolios. Kimelyn joins us from Charlotte. I think she's in Charlotte today, where she's from. And she has served on the board of Florence Crittenden Services, a nonprofit provider of health, educational and social services for women and children. And she also lives out her work by volunteering in her local community through volunteerism and other activities. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kimelyn. For our audience, I'll continue to monitor the chat if you have any questions, and we'll try to identify you, and you can unmute yourself if you want to do it that way so you can get your questions answered. But I will turn it over to you, Kimelyn. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Kristy. Thank you so much for that amazing intro. And to your earlier point about Robert, he's using such amazing, fantastic words to describe you and I, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you. Thanks to the National Collaborative for Digital Equity and to all of your amazing partners that make this summit possible each year. Thank you all for having me today. It's a pleasure to be with you. Happy Wednesday and good morning. In Charlotte, the weather is sunny and beautiful, and hopefully it is where you are this morning as well. So as Kristy mentioned, my name is Kimelyn Harris, and I lead Bank of America's $1.25 billion 5-year commitment to advance racial equality and economic opportunity, which is a mouthful, but it speaks to the level of work that is needed to respond to the many needs of under-resourced communities around the nation. And so at Bank of America, we are really aligning our philanthropic investment to advance economic opportunity and vitality, which is a key component to our overall philanthropic strategy. I really wanted to share that with you all today that in everything that we're doing currently at the bank, as we think about our philanthropic investment, it's really ensuring that we're aligning our goals and our strategy to advance economic mobility and economic opportunity for the most under-resourced communities around the nation. And then our $1.25 billion racial equality commitment actually sits under that overall investment. And so education and jobs, which is key to the conversation today, they're both really important components of the economic opportunity work. But we must consider the whole person when we think about economic mobility. So it's health equity, it's the ability to attain affordable housing. It's the opportunity to establish and grow a small business. All of those components are equally as important to economic mobility and opportunity for the whole person, for the whole under-resourced person. So what we know when we think about our overall strategy of this work is that one pillar cannot stand alone. We must address all of these issues. One of the things that we've really been focused on too is, just looking at the deployment of capital. We know that the deployment of capital into the most vulnerable, under-resourced communities is incredibly important. And racial and economic disparities can impact every aspect of a person's life. It's limiting their ability to access capital and resources, to grow wealth and pass assets to their family and community. And so these long-standing systemic inequities that we've been seeing for a really long time can just have a compounding negative effect across generations. And so it's going to take the collective. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take government, large corporations like Bank of America, and civil society to take steps to ensure that every American can participate fully in the economy. If we do not all participate, what we know is that these trends will not reverse. And so one of the things also that we're doing at the bank is we're really working to expand our nonprofit partnerships and programming. We have delivered $2 billion in philanthropic investments since 2009. In 2020, we delivered $350 million in philanthropic investments to drive economic mobility and social progress. And what we did in 2020 as well is we included a $100 million commitment, incremental commitment, to provide philanthropic support around the world to address health and humanitarian needs related to the coronavirus. In New Hampshire alone, we currently support over 60 nonprofit organizations, which I think is really impressive. And over the past 5 years, we have provided over $5 million in grants and matching gifts on behalf of our employees to, again, nonprofit organizations and communities in need just in New Hampshire. We acknowledge that while conditions have improved, there are many still in local communities that have not achieved true economic mobility, including communities of color, our working families, the formerly incarcerated, who continue to face barriers to economic success. So again, we are really focused on expanding opportunities and programs that support equitable solutions that will enable low-income communities to grow and to prosper. We are committed to driving economic opportunity, healthcare initiatives, and racial equality, again, with a really heightened and particular focus on people and communities of color. We're also pledging continuing our philanthropic efforts and leveraging the power of our employee volunteers to create thriving economics and a better future for all. And as I mentioned earlier, everyone has a role to address society's greatest needs. I think that is just key and just so important to when we think about economic mobility and vitality. It's not going to be one group, one organization, one corporation. It is the collective voice, power, influence, capital, resources that's really going to address, again, some of the greatest needs facing our nation today. So I just wanted to share with you all a little bit more around the racial equality work because it's front and center to our philanthropic strategy, of course, in the wake of the economic and humanitarian crisis that we saw in 2020. So in June of last year, we announced that $1 billion four-year commitment is where we started to advance racial equality. And most recently, we have increased that investment to $1.25 billion over 5 years to really expand our investments around systemic reform and civil rights and public policy. Again, thinking about the whole person, right? So understanding that these issues are systemic and we really have to get to the foundation if we really want to solve these longstanding inequities. And so our commitment really builds on work that was already underway to support communities of color. I really want to be clear that the commitment that Bank of America has made is incremental. It is above what we normally fund in support of communities. It's an incremental investment to broaden and deepen that support. It really is an illustration that we at Bank of America want to be part of the solution. And I'm really proud to say that it is a demonstration of who we are as a company and is a true representation of our core values. So our racial equality commitment is focused on 4 priority areas. And I mentioned those to you briefly just a second ago, but those are jobs, small business, affordable housing, and health, with systemic reform really acting at the foundation and core for all of our efforts. And we really was intentional, and we really was kind of forward-thinking around, what is important to support these communities. And so we selected these 4 pillars because they are all drivers of wealth, and they all have to coexist in communities of color for these communities to realize true economic mobility. And also, these are the areas where we have seen systemic long-term gaps and where significant change is required for progress to occur and for that progress to be sustained. And so our goal through this initiative is to really harness the breadth of our company. It's using the power of our 90-plus local markets, our 8 lines of business, our capital and our resources, and our convening power to bring about transformational change, again, to make a real sustainable impact. You've heard me say this morning the word sustainable quite a few times, but it's so imperative that we make investments today that are going to be sustainable for years to come. And so we are just about 16 months into our 5-year commitment, and we've already directed $400 million of our $1.25 billion commitment to support jobs and education, local community outreach, and support for our nonprofit partners, as well as making investments into minority depository institutions and minority entrepreneurs. And so one of the adjustments that we made to our overall philanthropic strategy over the past year in the wake of the global pandemic was to add a new focus on health equity. So we are the Bank of America. We are a bank. We are a financial institution, right? And so adding the health lens to our work was new for us. But we realized how critical that component is, again, to recognizing the inequities and barriers that face many in our community. And so our goal in adding the health equity component was to really drive community healthcare efforts and partnerships, promoting healthcare education, screening, and prevention. We've really been focused on immediate needs and how we can support under-resourced communities through the current health crisis. And so one of the things that we did in 2020 that I'm really proud of is that we established a partnership with CVS Health. And we did this in partnership with other local nonprofits to fund a no-cost flu voucher program. And so in fall 2020, we distributed over 9,000 no-cost flu vouchers to communities in need. And we are currently underway for a fall 2021 rollout. And we've rolled out to over 75 local markets across the nation. Over 300 nonprofit partners are participating, where we provided vouchers in hand that they can then provide to their constituents to go into any CVS location and receive a flu shot at no cost. It's easy to assume if you have insurance or some type of healthcare benefits that I can get a free flu shot. But the average cost of a flu shot is around $85 per person. For a family of 4, that is a substantial hit to their monthly budget. And so again, we wanted to ensure that if a family desires it, they have an opportunity to receive the flu shot at no cost. We also, again, have been focused on jobs and education. And so as part of this work, as part of this commitment, we've also earmarked $25 million in support of a signature jobs initiative, jobs and education initiative, where we've established partnerships with 11 community colleges, 6 historically Black colleges and universities, and 4 Hispanic serving institutions, really with the goal to bring about institutional and student success. How can we support institutions and students through this global pandemic, right? And so through this work, we're also partnering with other large corporations. One of the things that we've been really discussing internally that's front and center to this work is that it will be the collective voice, the collective action of all of us to get this work done. And so our Signature Jobs initiative is such a great example of how we're partnering with other large corporations to really understand the needs of jobs and ensuring that students are career ready to take those jobs. We're backing into the information and the knowledge that we're gathering from other corporations to support institutions to rebuild their curriculums, to rebuild their technology platforms and online platforms to really support students, so again, that they are career ready. In support of small businesses, we recently announced, we had announced that we surpassed our equity investment goal. So each of these goals are mini goals within our overall commitment. And we initially announced a goal of $200 million in equity investments to support small business owners. We quickly, just a year into our commitment, surpassed that goal. And so as a result, we increased our target to $350 million, providing capital to under-resourced minority entrepreneurs and businesses, which really emphasizes the need for more capital and funds that are led by diverse managers, as well as the need for more growth and equity funding for these minority entrepreneurs that need our support. Additionally, to support small businesses in affordable housing, we're investing $50 million in direct equity investments, again, to under-resourced minority depository institutions. We've completed about 20 investments already. Again, we're quickly surpassing our goals that we set for ourselves, which is good news. So we've completed about 20 investments into minority depository institutions across the nation. And these MDIs will then be enabled to provide additional benefits to the communities that they serve through lending, affordable housing, neighborhood revitalization, and other banking services. And so, we are about, again, 16 months into our commitment. I am really proud of the work that we've done. One of the things I will also share is that we're being really intentional about investments that we're making. We've taken the past year to listen and to learn. We are meeting with partners on a daily basis to understand the gaps and the needs of local communities. We want to meet with partners that are proximate to the issues facing the nation. And so we've really been listening and learning so that we can do more in our strategy and our approach to advance racial equality and economic opportunity. Of course, the work continues to evolve and grow as we learn. There are new programs that are being developed and that we're creating every day based on the needs of the community, the changing needs of our local communities. Another good point is that we cannot do this without the power of our local markets. It is key to the work that we do. We are looking at this holistically, and we have an overall national goal and strategy, but we also understand the power that resides within our 91 local markets, and that the fact that they're proximate to the issues and that they can really respond to immediate needs. And so again, we're leveraging that power to make sure that we are getting to the heart of these issues, not to put a Band-Aid, but to make sure that we are driving change, actionable, sustainable change that will impact local communities. So I've given you a quick overview of some of the great work that's happening at Bank of America, but I would love to hear feedback and questions from the folks that are on the line today. So I'll pause and just see if there are any questions or feedback.
Thank you so much, Kimelyn. And it's really pretty impressive to hear about the breadth of the work that you're doing. And you said a lot in your comments. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is you talked about how important it is to deploy capital. And you guys are obviously backing that up with your $200 million going to small businesses, and then, exceeding that in a year and then increasing that threshold. I guess I just wondered I agree with you. I think deploying capital is really important to try to support those that maybe don't have traditionally have access. I wondered if, for those that are here and aren't in a position to give out the type of funds that Bank of America does, are there other ways that people that are listening to this and the banking community and credit unions, that they can try to focus on deploying capital?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and thanks for that question, Kristy, because you're absolutely right. It's easy to assume, everyone can deploy capital in the way that large corporations can. But I said it through my notes, but everyone has a role to play. I think Even when we work with a partner to deploy capital, we think about what are the other ways that we can support that partner. So if it's not capital, we also leverage the power of our employee volunteers. You know, we have 200,000 employees worldwide, and we have a couple of programs that we just launched in support of that. So we have a program that we call Executive on Loan. So again, if there's a situation where we can't provide grant funding to a nonprofit partner, we can loan them an executive from Bank of America to up to a year, and in some cases 18 months, to actually go into that organization and help them with their strategic planning, help them with their operational excellence. So again, if it's not funding, how can we use resources, people resources from our corporations to support nonprofit partners? We do that through our Executive Leader on Loan program, but we also do it through our skills-based volunteers. So we have 200,000 employees, all who are very passionate about various issues and concerns facing their communities, who will volunteer in their own time to support nonprofits. But we also have skills-based volunteers where there may be, for example, a group of 10 employees who are versed in technology, who are versed in web design, who are versed in helping you with your online programs. And we will send that team, again, to your organization to support you. It's not grant dollars, but we're sending resources, which of course you can imagine, Kristy, in turn, is saving dollars for that organization, so they can support you to grow your platform or grow your exposure, your marketing plan, et cetera. So we really use the power of our employees to kind of help support some of that work. I also think if you're a smaller organization, it's important to create coalitions. So we are Bank of America, but we sit on, I can't even imagine 20, 30 different coalitions. We are not doing this work alone, right? Even 1.25 billion seems like an amazing amount of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not. It takes a collective. So even if you're a smaller organization, I would say join a coalition. You know, look into the Business Roundtable, who's doing great work, and they've laid out an amazing outline on how you can engage around public policy issues and advocacy in support of these communities. There's the World Economic Forum Coalition. So there's many coalitions that you can partner with to make your capital, your resources go even further in your efforts to support these communities.
Those are some really great suggestions. Thank you. I feel like you've given some really practical takeaways as to how the financial community can look to deploy capital. And I loved your idea of volunteering to try to help with strategic planning or marketing. I love that. And you also mentioned that you all really focus on your employees and the volunteering. So in addition to other voluntary efforts, not necessarily just surrounding deploying capital, but I wondered about if you could just sort of elaborate a little bit on the type of work, volunteer work that your employees undertake.
Man, so we have I smile because we have just such an arsenal of employees that are so dedicated. One of the things we do at Bank of America, and I don't think we're unique in this, I think a lot of corporations do it, we allow our employees 2 hours per week to volunteer. So again, during your workday, if there's an hour or two that you want to spend with a nonprofit that's near and dear to you, you want to go to your child's school to volunteer as in the classroom or do a PTA event, we allow 2 hours a week for our employees to do that. So that shows you how committed we are to making sure our employees know that we value their ability to support their local communities. I did pull some data up because I just was curious, even in New Hampshire, what we've done. And over the last 5 years, we have done 19,000 hours of volunteer work just in New Hampshire, which I am really proud of. And that's 19,000 hours out of the 2 million hours that we do across our company annually, in a wide variety of ways. When you're asking how they volunteer, there's no limit. There are literally over 1,000 nonprofits that our employees take part in. We value board membership, right? So if you volunteer, if you're a part of a board, we actually monitor that because we want to know, where our employees spending their time, where they're investing. Their commitments matter to us. How can we support you in your board position? How can we be part of the great work that's near and dear to you with that nonprofit partner. So we have a lens into that, and we get feedback from our employees in their engagement with nonprofit partners. And then again, we think about volunteering. I mean, through the pandemic, it's been working at food banks. It's been doing a lot of virtual volunteering. We've been in a virtual volunteer posture for about a year and a half. That means, how do you support through virtual education? Is it a financial class? Is it a affordable housing seminar? You know, how can you get online and do a virtual seminar? We even had, we do a lot of arts and culture investing, and we did virtual museum walkthroughs and those types of things. So it's very complex and it varies, but our employees have still, even through the pandemic, been really committed to the organizations that matter to them.
That's fantastic. And it's great to hear those numbers just for New Hampshire alone. So that's really great. Well, we do have a couple more questions. One of our questions is, and I don't know if this is best directed to you or maybe Ken Sheldon, who I know is the New Hampshire market president, but the question is Bank of America working with Center of Women Enterprise, SCORE, or New Hampshire Small Business Development Center, or are there other organizations that help with business planning? I see Ken turned on his camera, so I'm thinking he wants to take that.
Well, thanks, Kimelyn, and thanks, Kristy. I'll try to give that a shot. We are not active with those particular organizations in terms of business planning. We are active with those other 60 or so organizations that Kimelyn referenced earlier. But I see Paul McLaughlin on the line with NeighborWorks. They do a lot of consulting and helping both individuals and small businesses with their with their life plans or where they're going. And so I think those are the kinds of areas that we are engaged with. It's a good takeaway for me, though, because it's not really been an area of focus for us. And so I think we should be looking into more volunteerism with SCORE and others that provide business planning. We get exposure to a lot of businesses, as my colleagues in the other banks do. And I think that's a really good takeaway, that's an area where we can be more engaged.
Terrific. Thank you so much for that, Ken. Great takeaway. We have another question here for you, Kimelyn. Question is wondering what % of employees do any volunteering, let alone 2 hours a week? And how do you make sure the local manager is actually supporting letting the employee take time?
It's in our employee handbook. It is in the handbook. We are allowed those 2 hours. I mean, of course, it is at your manager's discretion. There absolutely will be, I'm sure there are, we have 200,000 employees across the world. I'm sure there are opportunities where there may be a week where it's just not possible based on workload, but it is a core component to the work we do, right? So I haven't heard of any challenges with that. I believe that there are cultures, right? Companies have cultures, and that is set from the top. And one of the things that our leader, Brian, has set is that culture of community, that culture of making sure that we take care of ourselves. One of the mantras that we have at Bank of America is bring your whole selves to work. Employees should feel like they can bring their whole selves. And when we think about that, what that means is, what are my challenges? What are my issues? What are my concerns facing my community, facing my family? And through the pandemic, we've seen that more than ever, that employees feel empowered to bring their concerns to the table, and they should. And so again, if they need to step away for 2 hours a week to support a nonprofit that's near and dear, or to be at their child's school to do something that's amazing, the culture at Bank of America is to support that. We have to support that. And that makes for a better employee. That makes for an employee that is more engaged and more committed to the work that they're doing every day. So it is a culture at the company, and yeah, I mean, we empower and incentivize that in every step of the way. Another piece of that real quickly is, if you do your 2 hours a week, and I think it's 50 hours or so, if you get to 50 hours at the end of the year, we will make a grant to your nonprofit automatically. You can apply for a grant, and the grant goes to your nonprofit because you've shown us your commitment to that nonprofit partner. We want to support that. If you hit those hours, then we will support through a grant to that nonprofit. So that is an incentive to the employee as well as the managers to support that volunteer work.
That's great. It's a great message that it really does start from the top. So, you know, you don't run into any of those issues where maybe managers are reluctant because of the workload and things like that. So, so that's great. And this is a kind of a big question, but I'm just wondering, from all the exciting work that you're doing to diversify the workforce within Bank of America, I'm wondering if you can share some of the lessons that you've learned as part of that process.
To diversify, Kristy, the workforce?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for that question, because, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about today is that when we think about our racial equality work at Bank of America, it's not just external. We're doing some internal work as well. We are engaging our employees around courageous conversations. We've been doing that from the beginning. Again, we want to hear, what are your concerns, employees? What are your challenges? And so we've set up a model, and it's team-based, but we created toolkits at the executive level, at the middle manager level, at the employee level, on how you can engage in a safe environment with one another to have some difficult conversations. So that has started. And one of the things that we know is that diverse thought, diverse ideas, diverse, you know, just how you feel and think about issues is important to us moving forward. Kimelyn may have a way in which she may attack a challenge, and Ken may have a different way. So diverse viewpoints is critical. And again, it's cultural. That's coming from Brian Moynihan down, is that we have to have these diverse viewpoints at the table. And so we're also being introspective. We're also doing the work internal to our own hiring, promoting. We just 2 weeks ago, Ken, announced that we have 2 Black leaders that have been promoted to be direct into Brian. And so we see the change happening internally, which is equally as important to the work that we're doing externally. And so diversity is front and center. Again, even internally, we're having those courageous conversations. We're looking at how we can further support women and all employees of color, especially through this. And then we're also, which I think we don't talk enough about, is this work has to be inclusive, right? I think people shy away from having the conversation around our white males and our white counterparts, but they are part of this conversation. They are part of this work. They are imperative to this work. And so what we do internally is make sure that we have every voice at the table, right? There's a lot of attention around communities of color and women, but every person has a role to play, has an opinion, has a voice. And so when we have those courageous conversations, it's imperative that we have everyone represented to bring to bear what's near and dear and important to them. Kristy, I hope that's helpful.
Hey, Kimelyn, if I could just add on to that, we recently announced that we have hired over the, I think it was past 18 months, maybe 2 years, about 10,000 now current employees through LMI neighborhoods and our community college partners. So, you know, not as much here in New Hampshire, but across the country, we've hired 10,000, and we are targeting hiring another 10,000 to make it a total of 20,000 from those communities. So I think that's just another initiative that Bank of America had started some time ago in recognition of the need to diversify the workforce, and something that's been highly successful.
That's great. Well, thanks to you both for that. And you know, Kimelyn, I thought it was really interesting too how you talked about having a toolkit to have difficult conversations, because obviously it's not easy. But again, that leadership really coming from the top to address those issues internally and externally is really just terrific. So it's just a great thing to learn that you all are doing. I am not seeing any other questions in the chat, so I guess we'll just, I know that we've got a couple minutes still, so I would just open that up to see if there are any other comments or questions for Kimelyn before we wrap things up.
Kristy, if I could hop in with a question.
Please
Thank
do.
you. Kimelyn, I know that you've got a Bank On certified product, and I know from your colleagues, Ken and Jim Foster here in New Hampshire, that you're doing wonderful work around developing and promoting free financial literacy materials that are really high quality in English and in Spanish, for example. And that I'm putting on a bank on hat now as, and I don't want to overstate that because we're only in our third box of Pampers as a bank on coalition. So we're very young as Bank on New Hampshire, but curious about your advice for us as a bank on partner with you. What are some things that we could be doing to help get the word out in support of financial inclusion and that sort of thing with your experience with bank on coalitions? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think what you're referring to, Robert, is our Better Money Habits program. Yep. So, which we're really, really proud of. It's just done amazing work, and it continues to grow. And to your point, we just expanded it to Spanish materials to make sure that we're inclusive as many communities as we can and have access to these free resources. Literally, it is, I believe it's bettermoneyhabits.com. Anyone can go to the site. It's free of charge. There's seminars, there's webinars, there's resources, how to set a budget, how to save, how to prepare for home ownership. And I would say spread it around. I mean, use it. In our partnership, really quickly, I'll just share with CVS Health, one of the things that we want to do is make sure we're not just talking about physical health wellness, but mental wellness as well as financial wellness. And so on our, we use the trifold on the voucher on the back. We created a panel that talks about better money habits. Because when you think about your health, also think about your financial wellness. And so on there, it just says, please go to bettermoneyhabits.com and learn more about how you can improve your financial wellness. And so I would say it's a really simple solve. It is to just share that resource. And then also, please reach out to Ken or to myself if you want us to have a better, what we call them, Better Money Habits champions. And Kristy, they're volunteers. And so they're volunteers who go through training on how to provide these in-person pre-COVID and now virtual seminars on various topics tied to financial wellness. And so if you want to have a volunteer or champion in your market, we have those right there in New Hampshire. We have champions in every market across the nation. They're happy to join any conversation, any organization to go deep on what the needs are and how they can support through financial wellness.
I confess to an oh my about that last piece about a better money champion, Kimelyn, and I'm going to channel my inner Mary Ford, who's a very dear colleague in all this, and Mary's on this call, and she and Ken and the rest of us with Manchester Proud and that whole partnership are doing a lot of work together. Mary is launching a prosperity cafe that's going to be promoting financial inclusion resources based in a high school in Manchester. And can we ask for dibs on a champion? Yes,
you totally can. That's an easy solve. Just send Ken and I an email. We'll get you a champion, and you will be impressed. They are all amazing. They do great work, and they're all so passionate. If you need a Spanish-speaking leader, volunteer, we can get that for you as well. So absolutely happy to do it.
I just also wanted to say, hi, I'm Elena from Bank Dora, and what you said about the underbanked communities and the unbanked communities and reaching those, I mean, it's so important. And Bank Dora, I'm not sure if you've heard of us, but we're just a small, all digital online checking account, all through your mobile phone, and everything is bilingual, which is super important. And I think that point, and that's been super hard to do on the app as well as the email, translating everything, all the disclosures, because how can people sign off on things if they can't read them, right? And it's crucial to get to those underbanked communities. And I love that point, and I just had to point that out, that it's super important. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and thank you, Elena. You nailed it. And just, I know we're almost at time, but real quick, and I want to grab it because I want to show you, I'm so proud of it. The CVS voucher, one thing we said was it has to be in English, it has to be in Spanish. Yep. It's on English on the side, it's Spanish on the back. Yep. We have a partnership with Cornell University, which I'm also very proud of, supporting women entrepreneurs. And we've had it for a couple of years. And last year we said, wait a minute, we have all these amazing women entrepreneurs joining this program, but what about our Hispanic Latino community? Can they take part? So we've worked diligently and really made sure that some of the TAs, the professors, The curriculum is all in Spanish, and we launched that earlier this year. So, Elena, you hit the nail on the head. That's about being inclusive, right?
Exactly.
It's one thing to say it. What is the action to make sure everyone feels included in the work?
Awesome, thank you. And I'll definitely take a peek at Bank of America's kind of like all the videos and things like that and see how you're doing it. So thank you so much.
I love that. Definitely check it out. It's bankofamerica.com about, and within the about section, there's a link just for advancing racial equality. If you click there, you'll get all the information you need.
Awesome, thank you.
And as Kristy knows, Kimelyn, extraordinarily, I don't know how you maintain such Zen composure, because you're about to keynote another event in about 4 minutes.
In 4 minutes, yeah.
It looks like Isla has a quick question or comment.
I do. Kimelyn, thank you so much. My name is Isla Dickerson, and I'm responsible for marketing, community development, and relations, and public relations at Bangor Savings Bank in Maine. We are also a bank on partner, and we work with Robert on a number of initiatives in New Hampshire. And my question is, if you could speak briefly to the role of marketing and some best demonstrated practices in both marketing and community outreach around this topic, because that plays such an important part.
Yeah, it's such a good question, Ela. Nice to meet you. I will tell you that Bank of America is unique when it comes to marketing in this space. One of the things that our CEO has said from the beginning, we don't get a pat on the back for doing what's right. You don't pat yourself on the back for doing what's right. We're doing what's right because it's the right thing to do. And so what you may note is, if you ever paid attention, there are no Bank of America commercials on TV talking about this work, because we're doing what's right. We don't need accolades for it. But what we do want to do is make sure when we talk about better money habits, when we talk about our CDS work, when we talk about the jobs initiative, we want to make sure that the communities that benefit from these programs are aware that they exist, right? So one of the things that we do is we lean into our nonprofit partners. We literally do. I mean, we have 60 in New Hampshire. We have over 600 in the nation. And they're managed by their individual markets, so it's a little bit more manageable. But we lean in on them to get the word out on the various programs that these communities can take part in. We will do local market ads sometimes, radio ads, and we will do a little publication to highlight the opportunity so folks can take part. But it's definitely not about, oh my God, look at Bank of America trying to do X, Y, or Z. That is not important to us. But I do think you talk about community engagement is allow your nonprofit partners to speak about the opportunity and using a little bit of local media to do that. That's kind of how we manage it. Ela, I hope that's helpful.
It's so helpful, and it's really about outreach and connections and not your typical marketing. Look at us, and I really appreciate that answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Well,
we need to behave, don't we, Kimelyn? Kristy and I, as Kristy and I know, we need to behave for you. And Kristy, thank you so much for kindly introducing Kimelyn and helping to shepherd us through this. Kimelyn, profuse thanks to you. What an inspiring start to the day. You've warmed my heart, and what a great way to start the day. And I hope your next keynote goes off as scheduled.
Thank you. It will. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Kristy. Good to be with you all. Thank you.
Oh, I think
That was awesome, Kristy. Thank you. I'm gonna hop to the next session, okay?
Okay, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Hey, Kristy.